my passion right now is doing what I'm doing that I would say like entrepreneurially or solving problems is such a core of what I am. I would probably go and invest $1 billion to solve problems. Like that's just what excites me more than anything is innovation and just kind of making sure that the world is better tomorrow than what it is right now.
Welcome to episode number 3 of Dental Rift. My name is Gary Bird. I'm the CEO of SMC National. We do dental marketing. We help businesses or dental groups drive in new patients on a consistent basis so they can have consistent patient flow. And my friend Tanner over here, go ahead, Tanner, introduce yourself.
Yeah, Tanner Applegate with Unify. I used to run a few dental offices and realized, you know what, this industry is pretty fragmented across vendors. So Unify is a software solution in order to help bring together all those different vendors and make your life easier as you manage interacting with all those different platforms.
That's awesome. Yeah, you managed more than a couple though. There was more. You guys had a good sized DSO going. And so how's it going growing? So starting a SaaS company is super hard, number one.
Yes.
But doing it in dental and doing what you're doing is even harder. How is that going? How is it going launching your company?
Honestly, I think that yes, running a company itself is like ridiculously hard. If I wasn't in love or passionate about what I was doing, like I think I would have given up by now. But the reality is like I love dental. I've got a lot of great connections in it. And there's a huge need of like problems here where every morning I'm like, man, I can't wait till I can like solve this for everybody and like make it go away. Like it's it really is like passion driven. I know that people always say that, but like I think this is the first time that I've really felt it in that kind of way where it motivates me like day in and day out versus like running a DSO, which I was motivated in it for different reasons, but anyways, this one's really exciting to me.
That's awesome. Yeah. Business on our side, we're going through that normal growth cycle where you grow and then you have to go in and fix things and then you grow a little bit more and then you fix things and things. I always get
the fixing or the growing.
We're in the fixing right now. We're building teams, I would say, rather than fixing is probably a better word. So we've built departments across the company, and those departments have leaders that are directors that are able to control the output of those departments. And now we need that team to work together and be able to communicate horizontally rather than just vertically. And that's hard, right? That's a hard thing to do. And we're getting better. Like the team's doing an amazing job, but things still happen. So I'm like hyper ADHD. So like there's an event and like a client complained to a vendor, that the vendor told our team that they weren't happy with us. And like, I'm just like, oh no. And it's like, you have to get to the point where it's like, okay, bad things are going to happen. And sometimes people aren't going to like what you do and you got to go fix it and try to make them better. But just dealing with that all the time. And I know people building DSOs go through the same thing, right? Dentists aren't happy with their agreements, or patients aren't getting the kind of treatment that you think that they deserve because somebody shortchanged them or hung up on them on the phone or whatever, right? So you have these things happen and you got to fix them. And I think that's just the entrepreneur journey that we're all on. Hey, before we go any further in the show, I need you to visit a website for me, dentalmarketingmanager.com. If you're a dental office that has somebody managing some of your marketing internally, it's so important that you get them trained. And right now, there is no standard, there is no set of KPIs that people use to build out this position. And so it's been a little bit like the Wild Wild West, but we're aiming to change that. On December 8th and 9th of 2022, we are going to be hosting the first ever dental marketing boot camp, and we're going to be covering everything that there is to know about being a marketing manager, all the KPIs, how to partner with a marketing vendor, how to build out a position, how to get more patient referrals, 2023 plan calendared out, and everything that you're going to need to manage your dental marketing. And this is not something that you're going to want to miss if you are a marketing manager, and you're not going to want to have your team miss this if you have somebody helping you internally with your marketing. So we hope that you will come. A lot of the SMC clients are going to be there. And if you don't work with SMC, that's totally fine. We still want you there. We want to help you. We want to help your businesses grow. So go check us out, dentalmarketingmanager.com. We have limited space, limited opportunities, and we hope to see you there.
Oh, that's for sure true. Like as you're sitting there talking to me about horizontal communication between departments, that makes me reflect back on like running those DSOs. I'm like, I was there, I've done that, and that is not a fun thing to have to solve, but I'm excited to see how you come up with it. You'll probably come up with 10 times better solution than what we did.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if we make it out of it. So we're going to meet in September and go over that. But I have a bunch of really cool topics. I actually have 3 really cool topics. And how many topics do you have?
I've got always like 10 or more, but the ones that I'm excited about today, I've got at least 2. And I imagine I'll be interested to see if some of them overlap just based off of what's happening in the industry. So if you want to launch into
I got one that's really, really, really good.
All right,
So
let's do
I
that
will. Okay. Well, no. Let's. I want to save that one. I want to save that one for the end. So let's do one of yours first.
Okay. So one of the, let's jump into this Inc. 5000s list.
Okay,
right?
That was on my list. That was not my top one, but that was on my list. Okay.
So I'm interested to see what you want to go with this. But for me, as I was doing this, obviously Inc. 5000's been around forever and dentals have been on it forever, but I don't know why, but this year I felt like it's gotten a lot more attention in dental than it has in previous years. Right? I mean, do you feel the same way, or was that my perception?
100%. No.
Why do you think
100%.
that's the case?
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot more people on it. What was there, about 40 some odd people on it?
46 or something, yeah.
Yeah, and the number kept getting bigger. So the first person came out and said 30 people from dental, and then it was like I was going through it. I'm like, well, we're not on there. We're in dental, and we're not on that. Like, you forgot us, you know what I mean? And then I assume they forgot other people. So as over time, it's like grown. So I wouldn't be surprised if it gets to around 50 of those, which would be amazing. Like if you can get to 1% of dental. So I think that speaks to the opportunities in dental. But also the thing with Inc. 5000 is this: just because you make that list doesn't mean there's not somebody growing faster than you, because you have to submit to the list, right?
Right.
So it's not one of those fake things like where you pay to be the best CEO in the country, you know what I mean? And you just like, you paid $5,000 to get that cover. It's not one of those. It's actual growth, but you have to apply for it. If you don't apply for it, then you won't get it. So I think part of the Inc. 5000 is just people knowing about it. So maybe that's why it's grown in the industry. Is more and more people are realizing like, oh man, we should put our names on there.
Yeah, that's true. So last year, more of them did it and they got recognition. So then this year, more of them submitted, and we'll see what happens next year. I bet you that's true. Next year, there will be, I wouldn't be surprised if we get triple digits of number of dental companies on there.
Also 100, you'd say 100 people.
100 by next year.
Fastest growing. Yeah. So you have to to get on the list, you need to be in that 180 to 100% range to sneak on that list of growth. And they measure it over a 3-year span. And then to get up into the top 1,000, you're getting into 300% growth. I think next year, so we were 4,000 and some change when we first got on it. And then this year, I don't want to say the wrong number. I think we're 3,000 or something like that, or 2,000, somewhere in there. And I think next year we have a shot to get into 1,500 because of the way the numbers work. They roll over. And so that, and then I think we're going to plateau, because there comes a point where you just can't be growing 300% all the time. Right. So I think people kind of get on the list, stay on the list there for a while if they're growing, and then they start falling off.
Yeah. Some of the ones, I mean, the top 5 in dental that I was looking at, I'm somebody that I feel like I'm very much in tune with what's going on in dental, especially with vendors and stuff. And the top 5, I didn't know 2 of them. I didn't know Stint. I didn't know Quickly. And those are both kind of HR solutions, which is not surprising to me that they are growing the way they are right now, right? Especially with COVID and everything.
Yeah, and Tab 32 was on there, which was
Tab
interesting, 32. A PMS.
Yeah, they were in the top 1,500 or so.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was interesting to me to kind of see, even within dental, the different verticals within dental that had grown a lot versus others. And obviously huge call out to Select Dental with Elliot. I mean, that's amazing how
huge
high they were up there. That was incredible.
Well, they grew like crazy. When I had Elliot on my podcast and we were talking, so he came in. Did you know before Select, he knew nothing about dentistry?
Yeah.
Nothing. He came in cold turkey with a couple practices and scaled that thing so fast. And if you go through and you listen to the podcast, you can tell he is a really, really sharp business guy and really understands business. And then it was just a matter of time until he learned the dental side of things, and that started to take off.
And I think that also, I mean, calling out Elliot and I have had a relationship over the years now, being a part of the DEO together. But one thing that I've always respected about him, yes, he's extremely sharp on the business side, but he's also extremely sharp on the people side, right? Like I
Mm.
feel like the level of leadership has been leveled up over the last few years in the industry, but he was one of the ones that early on he started talking to me about like, hey, who do you have in this role is more important than like what this role actually does, right?
Mm.
And so like listening to that type of leadership, to me it's no surprise that they've grown the way that they are, because he's the type of person that's just surrounded him with brilliant people, which is incredible.
That's really the secret to everything, right? So like if you have a complicated problem, you can build systems and you can do all the things that you want to do, but if you bring in somebody who can't get the job done, it really doesn't matter. But there's certain times where you just need to bring somebody in, especially when you're forging, like as you're growing a DSO and there's not a lot of people who've gone before you who are trying to do it, you're doing it in a unique way. That right person is going to make all the difference in the world.
Yep. And then making sure that they're focusing in the right direction too is a huge thing. Like it's amazing how you can bring a brilliant person in, have them head off in the wrong direction, and it still not actually work out the right way.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
leadership is awesome. Huge congrats to Elliot.
yeah, definitely. So here's my question on that particular topic. I can't find my list. So maybe if you have the list, if on that list, who would be if you had to go work for one of these companies? And let's set some boundaries on it, okay? So I'm going to set some
Okay.
rules around it. So you have to go work for one of these companies. You're going to be a team member. But depending on how they continue to grow and if they hit certain benchmarks, reaching the Inc. 5000 whatever, then you're going to get some equity or some shares in that company. Which company would you be most interested and most like passionate about joining?
Are we saying DSOs and vendors, or are we doing
Anybody on
either
the
or?
list? Anybody? Yeah, anybody on the
Interesting.
dental list. So I think there's like 40 something people on the dentist list.
And I can't say SMC, right?
Yeah, you can. You can say SMC. That's great.
I mean, obviously SMC, Gary. Why wouldn't I want to do that?
That would be my first pick too. So who would be your second pick?
No, I mean, across all these different companies, I know different things internally about these companies than others. Like, for example, dental claim support is one that a lot of people probably don't know in the group space right now, but I have intimately been working with them, and they are doing some amazing things internally that it's going to solve some huge needs in that DSO space that for sure I would see them blowing up.
So you feel their upside's way big, way high.
Oh, huge.
Like their upside's huge.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So where they'll be from where they are now. A lot of these, I mean, obviously I'm passionate about tech. So there's a lot of like the tech stuff that could blow up. Tab 32 is one of those that like they're in an interesting place in the market where if they can get more adoption and stuff, they have the potential to just catch on like wildfire where like their growth just escalates. Right. But at the same time, they have the potential of absolutely crashing and burning too. Right. So it could be either way. I mean, I think that
why is that? Why is that for a PMS? Why is that more likely either rocket ship growth or crash and burn? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's because of the fact of like how risky it is to switch over to that product, right? Like if I take the risk to switch over, it could completely destroy my business, or it could completely, absolutely revolutionize it in a positive way. Right. Yeah. So I think that's the same thing with essentially like right now, the industry is very much word of mouth for growth. That if I have a great, great interaction with Tab 32, they do rocket fuel my business, then great. I think that they could catch on from a marketing standpoint like crazy. But at the same time, they could also crash and burn from reputation.
I know that's what you're trying to solve, right? So not to do like a plug, but just so I understand what you're building is, so if I was a dental, right now, if I'm a dental office and I want to pick a PMS, I basically just have to talk to my friends and the vendors, right? And say, what do you guys think? And post in a group, what do you guys think? And kind of get some loose answers of people who may be on the same journey as me or may not. But what you're trying to build is I would be able to log into a site that has all the PMSs and then has comparisons of weaknesses and strengths of those particular vendors. And
absolutely,
so that way you can do an apples to apples. Like maybe Tab 32 is amazing at doing the thing that you want, and somebody else is not amazing at doing the thing you want, and they're great at something else you don't really care about. And you would be able to stack those against each other, and then that way I can make a more educated decision.
That's right. Yeah. So that unified industry side, we definitely want to be able to cross compare each other in a democratized way, right? Like I can go out and I can write reviews on, hey, here's what I think are the best solutions, but it's not like an individualized, like I didn't use each one of these solutions. And so it's just kind of an overview, right? But if we democratize it and say, hey, here are all the different feature sets, go in and kind of rate what you like and don't like about these softwares. There's always some things that people don't like that you can go in and say, okay, it looks like in this specific feature, nobody's doing it well except for this solution, right? And so that's what we want to be able to do on Unified Industry, is be able to say, hey, let's take these spreadsheets that everyone does all of their due diligence of what should we do, and then all of a sudden make that so that everyone has it available and can contribute their opinions and such. So vendor reputation management is one thing that we definitely are focused on and passionate about.
That's awesome. So Tab 32 has the potential. Anybody else on that list that you're looking at going, man, these guys, like, what about like MB2? I know they're growing like crazy.
MB2, I've always been hesitant of the MB2 model. Obviously, they've pulled it off and they've done incredible. But I think that the growth rate, once you get to a certain size, the growth rate is a lot harder to sustain. Right. And MB2 is one of those sizes where they're big. Like I'd be amazed if they could continue the same growth rate, but at the same time, like they're just so big, like they can't do a 2,000% increase. It's just not possible.
Yeah. Well, that actually leads me into the next topic. So I want to show you this video that MB2 made, and it's a recruiting video. Okay. And I want to get your dental thought on it. Now, I'll give you my marketing thought on it right now. Genius, because it's totally different than everybody else. From a marketing perspective, it's great. But and I know in the dental industry, it's a different ball game, right? People play by a different set of rules, and there's certain decorum that's acceptable and not acceptable in the public sphere. So I want to share this, and I want to play this video.
Don't you love dentistry at this giant company where we don't have to bother anymore?
Individuality?
Nope, not for me. I'd rather be a cog in a machine. We hardly get a say
On how we treat our patients.
It's all about the money, money, money. Boardrooms, numbers, money, 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 money.
Wait, but where's mine?
It's really not that bad. So bad, so bad. I'm only sometimes sad.
So sad.
So sad. It's definitely why I went to dental school.
Fact. Dentists are people, not puppets. Fact. DSOs can suck sometimes. Fact. Owning a private practice doesn't mean you have to go it alone. Just ask these guys. MB2 Dental. Be a partner, not a puppet.
Okay, so
Let me ask you a question. So, no, if you were a dentist, what would you think of that? Like, how would that work to recruit you? You own a dental office. You were going to go to school to be a dentist, so you own a practice. You're doing okay, but you really, you need more support. Would that speak to you?
I unfortunately do think it would, because of the fact that that's how the individual practices view DSOs right now.
Yep.
Totally.
So if you go into like dental nachos, right? You go into that group. I spent some time in there and there's a lot of they literally hate DSOs. They hate them with a passion. It's all dentists. They hate, like, it's just
right.
like pouring out how much they hate. And it doesn't matter how much you try to use reason. And it's just like, no, I hate DSO. So if someone in that group is actually going to sell to a DSO, that's going to really make an impact on their decision. And I think they hit all the pain points that people don't in the DSO world don't like talking about. That's my perception.
Yeah, I see that too, but I see also why that's so like damaging, I guess, to the industry is because the reality is like where we've come in the last 10 years is absolutely different, right, than where we were 10 years ago. Like the acceptance rate of DSOs has gone up. And I think that the reality is it's not just acceptance like, hey, we're going to accept our enemies because they've overtaken us and we're fine with it, right? It's like there is some satisfaction and like positive outlook on it as well, where that type of, I guess, ad really pushes us back 10 years ago from the progress that we made as an industry, maybe not as an individual DSO, but as an industry of like, hey, we really still do have this name perception of DSOs are bad, even though we're using this ad to say, hey, we're not like that. but the rest of the
Yes,
industry is.
yeah. So and I think that's where it rubbed people really the wrong way, is that it's basically saying everybody else is this way, and it's set the industry backwards. I heard Emmett one time explain it this way, because Emmett, great CEO, but he's not a dentist, right? He said, look, there's no such thing as a bad DSO or an evil DSO unless there's an evil dentist at that DSO. And I was like, okay, well, what do you mean by that? And he said, as an entrepreneur, and I'll use myself as an example, I have no idea. If I was running a DSO, I have no idea if you're doing good dentistry or bad dentistry. It really takes a dentist to be able to drive that ship and say, this is good clinical, clinical practices, and we're taking care of people. And I get it that other people can get in and manipulate that and change that, but you really need a dentist at this core of it. And my personal take on it is, there's great single practices that love people and take care of them, and there's bad ones. And there's great DSOs and there's bad ones.
Yeah, I don't know if I would agree with Emmett's comment of it takes a bad doctor to have a bad DSO, because I think that the reality is DSOs can also prey on the needs of doctors, regardless of where they stand kind of morally or ethically, right? And
so what do you mean by that? Like, walk me through, because you've obviously worked with dentists, you've worked with the groups, you've had to set like you had to like set goals and things like that. So how have you worked through that?
I remember, this is funny, back in high school, I remember learning about what a paradigm shift is, right? This is where I think that the bounds of good and bad are, and I'm in here, and over time, those can shift, right? And so the same thing happens clinically, right? As a dentist, when I'm in dental school, I form my first paradigm of like, hey, this is ethical, this is not ethical. And so as long as I'm somewhere in here, I'm okay, right? And that paradigm exists in different locations for every single dentist, right? What can happen though is that when you get into a group mindset of, hey, this is what the norm is, you can start to shift that paradigm for individual users way beyond their comfort zone, where they say, hey, if you want to make $400,000 a year, all you have to do is have your paradigm be here versus here, right? And so if you shift your levels of like what's acceptable dentistry up to this point where everyone else has done it too, you can kind of prey on that fact of like, oh, everyone else is doing it, so I'll do it as well, right? Like it can't be that bad. So I think that you can get into these boundaries of unethical dentistry becomes the norm. And again, that's just my paradigm of like where my boundaries of ethical dentistry are, that it kind of becomes something that industry wide, it could become a negative effect.
Yeah. So, and patients feel that, right? So patients, there is a lack of, like, I'll use marketing as an example because I can speak more directly to it. There's a lack of trust for marketers. Why? Because a lot of marketers have burnt people. A lot of businesses have been burnt and wasted money on and got nothing in return for it. And so I can relate to that and see how that's a problem and how we have to carry ourselves in a different way to be able to earn some of that trust back. I feel patients feel the same way, where they go in and they have this pain, and then they're getting, cosmetic treatment suggestions and things that they didn't maybe ask for or understood, and they didn't have it explained to them in a great way. And that kind of puts a negative light on the industry as a whole. So how do you protect against that? Because one of the big things that people bring up a lot of times is, well, if I go into the 5 different dentists, I have the same problem, I'm going to get 5 different treatment plans. And that's a problem, right? You're going to get 5 different, hey, this is what you should do. And they may go down different roads. Is that where like tech, like Overjet and some of these other ones come into play to help put guide rails on there? Or is there other ways that you would look at that as a non-clinical person in yourself working in a DSO?
Yeah, I think that what those things like Overjet and do, what it allows you to be able to do is automate compliance to that paradigm, right? And so if we say, hey, this is where our paradigm is, we can just go in and measure automatically now because of AI, have you complied with that paradigm, right? It doesn't actually go in and set the paradigm itself. The clinical compliance of what is acceptable dentistry and what we should be doing as a group is still something that needs to come from the DSO itself. Right. And so if we say, hey, by the way, if there's a 3 surface filling in any of the teeth, no matter what, we're going to always do a crown, right? Like that's a clinical standard that DSO is set, that sure, the AI can go in and say, yes, we complied with it or not, but it's not going to go in and say, hey, every time we have a 3 surface filling, we should do this. Right. And so again, it comes down to that clinical standard that's set by the organization. And I think that right there, that decision of what is acceptable dentistry, that's where things can get unethical or ethical. And again, it's ethical only if your paradigm says it's unethical, right? Maybe somebody is, you know what, I'm only going to do dentistry if it's an absolute 100% ideal case for this person, regardless of any other circumstance.
Yeah. Which is, yeah. I've heard people argue it that way too. That gets really tricky then.
Mm-hmm.
So how does other health industries deal with this?
I think you see it all over the place still in that same regard though too, not just dental. This is anything where a judgment call needs to be made, right?
Got it. Yeah. That's scary. Okay.
How do you
I don't want to go to the
standardize
doctor.
that against a group of people?
Yeah. Okay. I got another one. Let me see here.
That one, I mean, if we got a dentist in on that and had that conversation, that could be very controversial.
We should. That's what we should do. So if you're listening to this and you're a dentist and you're not scared to talk about these kind of things, let us know. Reach out to me. DM me on IG, and I'd love to bring you on and love to get your thoughts. What is ethical treatment? You know who might be willing to come on is I'm going to ask. Well, I won't say his name yet in case he says no. So I'm going to ask somebody to come on who's a dentist who's he likes talking about this kind of stuff. So
the question too that I would love to debate on that is there a universal standard of care, or is it dependent on each patient and situation? Should there be a universal standard of care?
Yep. Okay. And sometimes that doesn't work either, right? So there's certain things I know that the medical industry, like you go to your doctor and they tell you to do certain things, and it's like that's because that's the standard. This is what the book says to do. And sometimes it's like I can't even think of an example, but I've had things like that happen. So anyways, I'm not going to go any more down this road because I'm not a doctor, but we will bring a real doctor on and we'll have these conversations. So here's a question for you. So if I gave you $1 billion, did I already ask you this question? The $1 billion question?
No.
Okay. If I give you $1 billion, but you sold everything. So you sold your house, you sold your business, everything sold in your life, but you have $1 billion in just your family. What would you do with that $1 billion?
I mean, do I have to go provide for my basic necessities?
No, you have $1 billion. You could do whatever you want. You have $1 billion.
Like I said at the beginning of this podcast, my passion right now is doing what I'm doing, that I would say like entrepreneurially or solving problems is such a core of what I am, that I would probably go and invest $1 billion to solve problems. Like that's just what excites me more than anything is innovation and just kind of making sure that the world is better tomorrow than what it is right now.
Yeah. So I've been using this framework to kind of help me know what people are passionate about. And it's really helped me. So if I sold everything and I got $1 billion and I can go move anywhere, do anything. And some people are like, if someone says, hey, go sit on the beach, which no one's ever told me that, then that's going to be hard to satisfy you, right? Like,
you know, who have the people that would say that? It's the people that haven't experienced working for money, right? So if you're still in the point where you're doing a job just because you need the money, those are the people that if you said, what would you do for $1 billion? They'd be like, I quit and do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah. So they have, okay. That's a good point. So for me, I've thought about this a lot. I would I don't know what exactly I would start, but I would go start, if I sold all my businesses, I would take like a week or two off, travel somewhere cool, just with no responsibility, or anything when I came back. I'd get back and I'd start a business. I don't know what, but in that 2 weeks, I'd figure it out and I'd have all the money to play with. Right. So I love going and starting things and building new things from the ground up. I love doing that hard part. And so I find that exhilarating, fun, hard, and it wakes me up in the morning, right? Like I would love to get after it. So we'll go ahead.
Let's say as part of your stipulation, we'll change it a little bit. You don't have those 2 weeks to think about what business you want to start. You have to start it tomorrow. I'm curious, what would your gut reaction be that you jump into tomorrow?
Tomorrow, and I have $1 billion. So if I have $1 billion, then I would probably, what's like the trending thing right now that I think is going to be huge?
But would you chase something that just for the sake of what it could potentially become? Because if you got $1 billion, you have $1 billion, right? Like,
yeah. No, so I want to
make it and turn it into a 10 billion, 100 billion, but is that really going to make a difference
No, it doesn't make a difference, but I want to do something that I feel that is growing, right? Because that's really important to me, is that I'm learning and I'm growing. I don't want to go and invest it into faxing technology, right? And even if it could, I'm not going to grow in that. It's going backwards. I'm fascinated.
What does growth do though? Because
Growth
the
creates.
industry, like this, so like if your vertical that you decide to work in is growing, it doesn't change the fact though that you still have to go and figure out how to solve a business and grow that business anyway. Right. So what does the
Correct.
growth of the industry have anything to do? Like how does that impact
Well,
that?
I'll give you an example. So like crypto is very attractive to me. Crypto has some of the smartest people working in it. So when
Okay.
you go over into dental, it's hard to get, I'll just speak to marketing. It's hard to get talented marketing people to come work for a dental marketing company because no one ever in the history of man is a good marketer and thinks I want to be a dental marketer. It happens by chance, right? That these marketing companies end up in the dental industry, and they still might be good. I'm just saying that if someone's amazing at marketing, they're going to think crypto, cell phones, all these other channels first. And so when you go to an industry that's hot, like crypto, right now it's not hot, but if it turned the corner and got hot, again, like there's a lot of smart people there, and so you can recruit and you can work with some of the best people in the world. That's attractive to me because even though I don't understand crypto as well as I should to start a business there, if I had $1 billion, I could hire people and get really smart people around me. And where in other industries, if I jump into something like say in pharma or something like that, I might not be able to attract that same level of talent. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I think that where you and I differ in that regard is that you've accepted like, hey, this is where my skill set is that I can play around in. And I think that where I am at is like where things are not working is where I want to play. So if I think like, let's go to the crypto example, right? Like crypto has this potential, but it's not being realized right now. So I'm like, okay, if this is where the potential is and this is where it's at, like I want to know the tactical reasons of why we're not there. And I want to help be the solution to help us get there. Right.
Yeah.
Whether that's me actually like knowing the technology or me like working with people to help figure out what that technology needs to be. It's like, I want to solve the problem to get us there. And you're like, I want to be a part of that energy in the regards that, and this is what I guess what I understand is like in the verticals that I understand already. So for example, like marketing, right? Like I want to go and be a marketing in crypto because I get to work with the best marketers, even though marketing itself is not solving the need of where it should go.
Oh, no. I might not even do marketing. That's what I'm saying is I might not even do anything in marketing. I might do something that I have no experience in, but I get really smart people. I get to work with the best people. I think of like how PayPal got started. And if you look at like the 5 people who started PayPal, it's insane. Like the level of talent that they had pulled together there. And probably it would be way too big like of a room for me, but that's what I want. I want to keep pushing up into bigger rooms of where I'm uncomfortable around the talent, right? And so it might have to be outside of marketing and it might have to be outside of dental specifically. Like that would be my first instinct, but I don't know exactly. I don't know what my mind just goes to crypto because I know that's where a lot of the talent is right now. I also
Chris
love
Pham?
Dr. Chris.
Yeah. So Chris, same thing. This is exactly what he went through, right? He was like, I'm passionate about all of these things, but I'm not I don't feel like I'm living in it right now in the dental world. Right. So he figured out how to put his team members around him to support it. So that way he could take a year off and he's at this like elite. It's not even like an MBA. It's like above an MBA at MIT where he works with a bunch of other like high level executives. And it's because he wants to be able to put himself into a room where there's other brilliant people here at MIT that can broaden his horizon outside of dental. And he's done that as well through like angel investing, et cetera. But I just thought it was incredible.
Don't get me wrong. I love what I do. Like I love what I do. What I get to do every single day. I woke up today excited. I have 4 podcasts today and a one-on-one and one sales call. Like that's my day today. Super stoked about that. I get to talk about marketing. I get to talk about dental. Right now where I'm most challenged is, can I build this team, executive team, to horizontally communicate inside of dental, inside of marketing, right? Like, can it be done? Yes. Is it super hard and complicated? Yes. Is it beyond my skill set? Yes. Do I have to bring in people to help me? Yes. But the $1 billion question is interesting because you have to sell what you have, right? If you got to keep what you have, then I would just reinvest I always reinvest into what I currently have
Right.
because it's going to give me the biggest return. But you want to take that away from people to kind of see where their interest lies. I just want to work with cool people. Like I just want to work and solve. Like I really, really enjoy that, and I think it's an interesting question though because it really challenges you and pushes you out of your comfort zone. And that's an interesting story about Chris Pham too. I think maybe we should bring him on too.
Yeah, I'd love to bring him on and chat more about that. See how it's going because I think he's out there right now, actually in the middle of the program. So I'd be interested to see how that perception's changed. But you're at a fun place in your business because as you get those directors built up into their leadership roles and they really own their departments, what that does is that frees you up more and more to be involved in those things that you're passionate about and less in the day-to-day of the business, right?
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden you're not solving the problems inside the business. You're solving, okay, where does this business go?
Yep, exactly. You nailed it.
That's awesome.
Was I went over all my topics. So you have any other ones?
Yeah. So one I wanted to chat with you as your marketing brain, right? I read an article recently about this DSO who put a lot of emphasis and priority into teledentistry as their differentiator as a platform. Right. So I've got a whole kind of list of ideas or questions I want to go around this, but I want to first start off with this idea or a question to you as a marketer is, do you have any idea of what the show rate is for new patients?
For teledentistry?
No, just in general, like regardless of platform, whether they call in or whether they schedule online or whatever. Do you know what the show rate is for new patients?
It depends on how far you're putting them out. And it depends if you're talking, so there's a couple of qualifications. So first of all, are we talking patient referrals or are we talking marketing? If you're talking marketing patients, it's solely dependent on how fast you're getting them in. As long as you're getting them in within 48 to 72 hours, you're going to be a normal no-show rate. So that 10, floating around that 10%.
Right.
Once
10,
you,
20%,
yeah. So once you exceed outside of that 72 hours, you start putting people a week, 2 weeks out, that number starts jumping 20, 30%. Patient referrals, on the other hand, show at a much higher rate, and you can put them out further, and they tend to be much more compliant because somebody else already did the selling for you.
So talk to me then about the platform in which they become new patients, right? So the avenues in which people can go and be new patients right now is online self-scheduling,
Yep.
right? They can call in, they can even do
Yep.
web chat these days. Like, does that platform impact that show rate?
Yeah, absolutely. So chat is, so when you say chat, do you mean a third party
Website
chat? But
Yeah.
a third party managing it or the office managing it? Because that makes a huge difference. And then
I think probably more broadly acceptable right now would be third party, right?
Yeah, because that
So
means you're actually, so most offices don't have the bandwidth to manage chat. So it's really hard to get a good idea if chat's working or not because everybody's busy and they don't respond to the chat and then you lose it. So you have chat and then you have online scheduling and you have phones. Those are the three main ways that I know that you can track to see the outcome of that. The average for phones, we have enough data around phones to know this, for marketing is around 50%. You can get it up to about 80, 90% conversion on marketing patients if you really work at it and you hold the team accountable. The other platforms are not as good as that. Like phones is the best.
What about show rate though?
It's the same thing. So it's
Same
how long you're putting how long are you putting them out? So if you're picking up the phone, it's 10% show rate if you're getting them in roughly, give or take a couple points. If you're getting them in within 48 to 72 hours. If you
So what is your thought on these? So these companies like ZocDoc or even like online scheduling on your website, right? Like the show rate of those are going to be a lot less than if you call and actually talk to someone, right?
Yeah, but this is where it gets foggy for everybody. Everybody aggregates all those show rates together. So they're mixing they're either all new patients together or they're all patients together. So you always have a high show rate no matter what you boil it down to, because existing patients, of course they're going to show. They scheduled it. It's the new patients you got to worry about. And so
with your guys' platform though, have you gone in and measured by avenue?
Yes. Yeah, which avenue they're reaching out to.
And what's the variable? I mean, what's the range in which the show rate is
on each platform?
On each platform, right? So whether it's online scheduling, web chat, or
The biggest,
I
the
just
it depends
go
how
ahead.
far you're putting them out. So you have to create that
Okay.
baseline. How long are you punting these people out? Assuming all things are equal and you're getting them in within 72 hours, phones tends to do the best. With online schedulers, you still need a human interacting with those people if you want those people to show up at a high rate. There's still a human touch because people still have questions. The biggest obstacle that I see with online schedulers that nobody talks about is they break all the time, almost regularly, like all the time, where it's like, no, we have tons of availability. Well, your website says you don't have any availability. And that kills marketing flow. That's actually one of the things on top of our list to always check when patients drop lower is to go and check if it broke. Like, is it showing properly? And because that's a huge problem. And then online chat is, again, chat's at the mercy of your ability to be able to have available appointments. Your chat will be extremely successful if you have available appointments. You don't, same thing.
So the reason why I bring this up is obviously teledentistry is an opportunity for you to be able to make that connection with the patient before they come in, right? And so as I've been thinking about this a lot, there's been a couple of vendors in the dental specific space that I've reached out to that have a unique platform. I've reached out to you to chat about them, like SmileSnap, right? SmileSnap is a widget that you can put on your website. And so a patient can then take intraoral photos of their mouth and send it to you, right? And so I'm thinking, okay, if by that additional step, does that increase a show rate for a patient enough to actually justify the cost of it, right? And obviously, SmileSnap believes that the answer is yes. I think that it is yes, because now all of a sudden you're getting a personalized care, right? But then does it
But it
reduce
depends.
the amount of...
It depends, right, what you're working with. So if you're doing ortho, implants, or anything of that nature, or anything pain related or something like that, I think so. If you're dealing with like normal hygiene, new patient, pedo patient, I think that's going to be a separate story. And then also you're talking about, just so everybody's on the same page, you're talking about when people go and submit photos and then somebody follows back up to have a conversation about those photos, right? You're not talking about, hey, let's get on a Zoom call right now and schedule that. And
that was the second avenue that I wanted to go, right? So the photo ones is nice because it meets the convenience demand of patients, right? After hours, I can still do it even if the office isn't available.
Correct.
Right. And so a lot of these times too, when we would do a new patient, we would schedule for a half hour for them to do the exam. But based off of even just like on a phone call, you can tell, hey, there's treatment that's needed. How should we schedule this? And there's, again, we talked about paradigms, right? There's paradigms of like, let's schedule them and create the space so that way we know for sure that we're going to do something and we have the time to do it. Or there's like, hey, we're so busy, we're just going to schedule them for an exam and we'll get them in for the procedure later. Right. So I'm sitting there thinking in my process brain, if you could take that exam, move it offline into a virtual appointment, what is the benefit there? Right. So maybe we can get you in the next 30 minutes because you just happen to be free. We're happy to be free. We can do a virtual exam and then get you in for the actual procedure like that same week. But now all of a sudden we're not doing double visits and therefore reducing the likelihood of actually getting the revenue generator, which is the treatment done. Right?
Yeah.
So
I think if someone, I haven't met anybody who's like knocked this out of the park. I know they exist out there, but I haven't met anybody that's like really committed to it and gone the extra mile. I don't.
What's the barrier?
I think it's the complexity, having a dentist, reviewing those, getting back to those patients, setting that. It's like it adds complexity to an already complicated model. I think that's my guess. And people want marketing to drive it, right? So people are like, Gary, you figure it out. Well, I'm at the mercy of the office.
It's an internal process that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, it's not, all I'm doing is just driving the interest to that. Can I drive interest to that? Absolutely. People will be interested in that if you drive them back to it. We use it for like, we have some doctors that use it for like implants, things like that. Another thing, just like a marketing like tool, is to, when you're doing implants, is to say, do you qualify for implants? And people are interested in that and they'll take surveys. And then now you have enough information to know, okay, this is this kind of patient. And patients are happy to do that. So I don't think it's a patient problem. I don't think it's a marketing, like marketing doesn't want to do it. Marketing wants all the tools you'll give it. It's a operational, how are you going to structure this? Change management and really like scheduling, right? Like, hey, you're the doctor, Tanner. where am I putting these appointments? Do they count as real appointments? Are we giving? Do they get paid for the appointments? How are we billing into insurance? Like all these questions start coming up that are like kind of secondary to will this actually work for us?
Yeah, I had a vendor who was pretty early on in their stage reach out to me, and their new startup, and they said, "Hey, like we've got this opportunity in here. Where do you see the value for a dental office?" And I sat there and worked through multiple things, and I said, scheduling is one that is broken in dental, right? Every time something's broken, there's an opportunity to fix it. And I said, but the reality with scheduling is that it is not just the stakeholder of the front office that you need to change. The stakeholders are also the back office. So you literally now have to get the entire office bought in. And that change management is not nearly as easy as just changing the front office person to come in and check your platform.
100%. Yeah, no, there's a lot of people who have to be involved with it, and it's painful when you get it wrong. Everybody in the office knows that you got it wrong. When you get it right, nobody says anything about it. It just kind of flows. But when you get it wrong, it's painful. And I see offices, even big groups, struggle with this. That they'll say, yeah, we have availability on our schedule. And I say, okay, great. If I had 5 patients call today, when could you get them in? Well, we have one option tomorrow, and then we have one on Friday, and then we have like 2 next week. And it's like, well, no. You can't drive new patients into that. You have to have volume of options. It's not enough just to have one slot at 8 a.m. because most people aren't going to be able to say yes to that. So then most people don't realize that actually your marketing might not be working just because of the way you've structured your schedule.
So what's the solution? What's the business that needs to be created in dental to solve that problem?
Well, it's training. So we use coaches. So we'll say, okay, let's coach these people on how to block schedule. And then there's, I think, like dental's not optimized in a lot of practices with like same day treatment. What I've seen work really well is, cool, let's load up on new patients today. So pack the schedule. So we're looking forward a week into the schedule, right? So you're telling me on Monday, we don't have a lot of treatment. So let's pack that with new patients and then flip same day treatment on that Monday because we don't have a lot of treatment that day. On Tuesday, you do have a lot of treatment scheduled. So let's not put a lot of new patients there because you're not going to be able to do anything with them anyways. So it's using new patients to fill your low treatment days and avoiding the high treatment days with more new patients because you're going to have to punt out that treatment anyways. That's what I've seen work
all of that, you've just kind of done human algorithms, right? If this, then that. If this, then that. Right? So maybe the tool that's missing is a smart scheduler that says, okay, here's the need, and goes through all these if this, then that situations where it said, okay, here's the ideal scheduling solution for what you're looking for. We've built
spreadsheets around this where it's like, okay, if the treatment goal in a day is X, and if it's below that by Y percentage, then you dump new patients there. That's where the office puts all the patients, right? And if it's above that percentage, then you don't put new patients there because they're going to be busy. They're going to see the new patient, but they're going to have to put it out anyways. And patients don't like it. And the best part about same day treatment to me is everybody wins. The patient wins. The doctor loves it because they're getting that treatment done right away. They're not having to push it down the road or put it to another doctor or something like that on a day that maybe they can't come in. And it's really a win-win-win for everybody. So I totally agree with you. Something like that definitely needs to be built.
And do you think that's because, like right now, as I think back like my PMS interactions, right? Like you literally have to go in and manually click how much time do you want, right? Maybe what it's missing is like you've seen those spreadsheets, like, okay, if it's a filling, then add on this minute, right? Add these two at the bottom, right? Maybe that needs to be built in to automatically be calculated too, right? And so, because reality is when we built out our own internal business intelligence tool, right, of figuring out how well is our company operating, figuring out how to effectively use our utilization was so instrumental in how well did we actually use our PMS, right? And so we had a ton of coaching around how to use the PMS schedule, right, in a way that we could actually effectively measure our utilization.
Yeah, no, most people don't know their bandwidth. So when I talk to people, they go, how many new patients do you need? 100. Okay. When could you see a new patient? 3 weeks. Right? Like so you're maxed out on your bandwidth, but you want to continue to dump new patients into it. Doesn't make sense. So there's something.
It's because the PMS is broken.
Hmm.
And that's why like the off the shelf ones like Dental Intel and Jarvis, they can't measure that because it's so instrumental based on how you use your PMS. So maybe that would be something that's be required is let's create guardrails around how you actually use your PMS to get an effective utilization rate.
All right, if you're listening to this and you have $1 billion and you want to give it to Tanner and I, we'll build it for you.
Or better yet, you build it and we'll support you.
Oh, we can bring them on the podcast as a.
I love people that are passionate about these ideas and are willing to run with them.
You're going to give them $1 billion. All
I'll give them $1 billion. All
right,
it'll
cool.
be an
You're to hear it first. That's awesome.
That.
Well, this has been a good one. This is how are you feeling on these shows? Like this felt pretty good today.
Oh yeah, it's getting a lot more natural and it's actually like exciting.
All right, so here's a little thing. So message me on Instagram if you're listening to this. I have a thing. I thought no one listens to the end of these shows, and I started dropping these little things at the end of shows, and then all of a sudden, like people started messaging me. So I want to see. This is episode number 3. If you're listening to this, if I'll send you some swag, and Tanner, if you have some swag, maybe you can send them some swag too. But we'll send you some swag. But you have to message Tanner or I and let us know your favorite number. Let us know your favorite number and just message it to us. Say my favorite number is boom. And then that way we know who's actually listening to the end of these shows.
Honestly, too, I'll even one up that more. Right now, we have a very exclusive invite only access to Unify. If you message me, I'll get you early access and ahead of 750 offices that are on the waiting list to be able to access Unify. So
okay, so and all you have to do is just find Tanner. You're on Instagram, right?
No, don't do me on Instagram. Do either LinkedIn or Facebook.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, don't do Instagram.
Don't message me on LinkedIn. I literally get like 500 messages a week on LinkedIn, and they're like, it's so crazy on there. I never
Let's
follow.
Chat about that next week.
Okay, cool. Good job, man.
All right, talk to you.